going even deeper into Apple and this Google relationship, big questions emerged this week as Bloomberg reported that Apple was speaking to both Google and OpenAI about powering certain AI features on iOS specifically. According to the article, this deal between Apple and Google seems much more likely than the OpenAI one and could happen this year. As you know, we've talked about it on this show before, Google has been the default search engine on iPhone for, I think, over a decade now. And Google pays Apple $20 billion a year. That's pure profit for Apple. It's unclear what features they would power with Google Gemini. Maybe it's like the search deal and Google Gemini's on there. Maybe it's built in. And Apple has been building its own LLM. It's called Ajax. They've been doing some other open source stuff called Maggie. What do you think, Chamath? You were talking about this on Twitter. I think you had a pretty good tweet and a pretty strong position. If Apple is going to use Gemini, what does that say to you about Apple and their view of the future?
I think it's them giving up. This is the most consequential new development in technology and compute in probably 20 years, 30 years. And so to be spending tens of billions of dollars of R&D and to not have enough allocated to this so that you have a legitimate path forward to do it yourself, I think is a little inexcusable, actually. It's akin to IBM in the 70s going to Microsoft and basically asking them to build the operating system for them. When you're such a dominant company in such a dominant position, but you abdicate your responsibility to innovate, I think that that's a really bad situation for a company to be in.
It's like Yahoo adding Google search, right?
And then, by the way, on the heels of like turning off cars and losing these antitrust issues in Europe and then being sued by the DOJ here, to then be in a licensing discussion with a third party for such a critical technology, I think is just says not very good things about the state of the company.
Freeberg, your thoughts on this potential deal? We don't know what features this would power. I don't know if it's Siri or it's just image editing or search or an extension of search, maybe giving an answer.
I have no idea. It seems to me like if Apple's doing the right thing, which I'm sure they are, they're probably building their own alternative platform here. They realize it's going to take them some time. In the interim, they want to have a stopgap. And my guess is by going to Google, they're probably going to get paid instead of having to pay someone else for the technology. Because Google will realize some benefit from getting users over to search results and seeing ads. So Google will probably benefit and pay them instead of them having to go pay someone for access to some technology that consumers might want access to.
Sachs, any thoughts here?
I'm sure Apple's going to make an investment in building their own models here.
Yeah, I mean, who would look at the launch of Google Gemini and say, I want that? That launch was a total fiasco.
Another woke company. I think it fits the Apple philosophy pretty good.
How woke would Tim Cook have to be to look at the launch of Gemini and say, oh yeah, I don't see anything wrong there. You got that exactly right.
Absolutely.
I want that.
Yeah.
Siri, show me the president of the United States.
I mean, apparently Tim Cook is the only person on earth who's impressed with the launch of Google Gemini. I mean, I can't believe this story is true. It's just, it can't be true.
I'm so excited today to launch Gemini on stage here at iOS 27. Oh my God. Can you imagine him on stage doing searches live in Gemini?
The story can't be true because it'd be so strategically dumb. Like Chamath said, even if Google Gemini were great, you'd still want to invest in having your own thing because it's such a strategic technology. Why would you ever outsource it to your main competitor? But in this case, you know that Gemini was terrible. It was a fiasco. And so the story makes no sense. I just can't believe it's true.
It's probably people knocking on each other's doors. Yeah.
They spent $30 billion last year on R&D. $30 billion.
Apple, to be clear.
They spent $30 billion on R&D. What did they spend it on?
Catering.
I mean, you got to think Apple Vision is a big piece of that, right? Chips. I guarantee you like half of that is like the M3, M4 chips.
$30 billion, like not a couple crumbs fall out of somebody's pocket. And so there's $50 million allocated to just like, mucking around with Llama or mucking around with Mistral.
What if they took Project Titan, the car deal, that was $10 billion. Supposedly they had spent on that. I mean, if they put that towards AI, it would be Microsoft.
But again, it goes back to the people. I don't think the person in charge of the windshield wipers Project Titan is going to be the person that figures out how to land a really killer LLM.
Yeah.
That's a different skill set.
But it's not even that expensive. I mean, you're
One's a
right.
mechanical engineer and one's a computer scientist. So these are not the same people. They're not fungible that way.
I mean, I guess the question here is Apple capable of building on a culture basis, Friedberg, this type of software? They're a hardware company.
It's
Do
not
they
hard.
have it in their
You're standing on the shoulders of the whole open source movement. All you have to do, like Jamal said, all you got to do is take the latest Mistral model or
jump on Hugging Face and start working.
I mean, you're not starting from zero because of open source.
Yeah, not only are you not starting from zero, not only do you have the foundational models that are excellent and available in open source, you have probably the most prolific set of training data that has ever been created in the entire world to make these models kick ass.
Yeah, you have all the Apple Photos archive. I wonder if in their terms, see, that's the thing is their terms of service is so privacy based. I wonder if they could even use that information.
And I just think, look, at the end of the day, the Apple brand is still exceptional. And so if you're given a $10 million a year job at Google versus a $10 million a year job at Meta versus a $10 million a year job at Apple, if you're like one of these killer AI people that get these kinds of offers, I got to presume that Apple gets their fair share of these people.
Yeah, you would think.
And even in the worst case, you see Microsoft doing like pretty heavy-handed deals with companies like OpenAI and just this week with Inflection. So it's not as if these deals can't be done, right? And so it just kind of like leaves, I don't know, it's quizzical to spend that much money, to not necessarily be willing to compete on the human capital, to not necessarily be in the market acquiring these businesses. I don't know. It's just a question mark. Like, what's going on over there?
Chamath asks, what's going on over there? We have some inside footage. Nick, you want to play tape?
What's going on here? What are we watching?
I hope we didn't keep you waiting.
Mother Nature, welcome to Apple. How is the weather getting in?
Oh, she's controlling
The weather was
This is so
however I wanted
cringe.
it to be.
Yeah, they did this couple of.
But this reflects their self-image. I mean, they released this.
They care about the planet.
No, it reflects that they think somehow this is an accurate reflection of the way they do meetings.
No, I think it was the.
No, I think
the
it was a
point they were
skit.
making is they were trying to do a skit about like how they're doing less packaging and including that skit was to tell you that you're not getting a charger in your next iPhone because they want to
You
save the
didn't think
planet.
it was cringe?
I thought the
It's a
intent
little-
was
yeah.
maybe
was
it's a
super
little
cringe.
cringe, but yeah, I think it's
It
a
was
little
super
cringe. But
cringe.
I do appreciate that they are doing sustainable products and not putting as much stuff in landfills. So I think they should get a lot of credit for that. What I do think about this deal that's really interesting is it's sort of cementing the Google and the Apple alliance against Microsoft. And Microsoft has big, AI ambitions. So this is kind of interesting. If you lock in the duopoly of Google and Apple, and then you lock in Google's search monopoly, and you start fighting Microsoft, I think that's what's probably going on here. Is they're trying to figure out how do we keep Microsoft away from running away with this.